This show is listener supported. You can join us and help our show grow to support more adoptees by going to adopteeson.com/partner. You're listening to Adoptees On, the podcast where adoptees discuss the adoption experience. I'm your host, Haley Radke, and this is a special episode in our healing series where I interview therapists who are also adoptees themselves, so they know from personal experience what it feels like to be an adoptee. Today, we are revisiting When Reunions Fail with Pam Cordano. This time, we are talking about how to cope. Let's listen in. I'm so pleased to welcome back to Adoptees On, Pam Cordano. Welcome, Pam.
Thanks, Haley. Hi, everybody.
I am so excited to have you back. Always love our conversations. Even though today is going to be, I think, a hard topic, but so many of us have experienced, oh my gosh, reunion breakdown and secondary rejection and just like the pain of it all. Yeah. You want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, I mean, I sure have.
Me too. Just so everybody knows. We've both experienced it.
So I think the pain, especially when it first happens, the pain of secondary adoptee rejection is so deep that I don't even know that we have a word for it in English or in any language. I don't even think that it's understood. I mean, for me, it wasn't understood until it happened. And I just want to give you a quick story about both sides of my first family and how it affected me. And so when I was 28, I was perfectly healthy my whole life, as far as physically healthy. And my first mom was mentally ill and made many suicide attempts. And I was in the car with her, visiting her, and I said to her, "Can you just give me 5 years?" And I said 3 or 5. I think I said 5, of staying alive and not trying to kill yourself, so I can just know that I can have you for 5 years. And she said, "I cannot promise you that." And that was the moment that something broke between us, because I couldn't afford to hang in there when she kept making suicide attempts. So the pain I felt was utterly overwhelming. Like I remember I was sobbing in the car, and I was just sobbing in this deep way, like almost like how a child might sob. And I had a feeling of like a sickness that came over me, like a grief kind of sickness. I was thinking like the word soul pain might make sense. But the thing that happened is I didn't know how to process it. And I'm not saying this to scare anybody, but I got an autoimmune disease like 6 months later. And I just, in my mind, I can't help but link these two things. And I can't help but feel that the pain of her not being willing to hang in there with me. She's still alive, by the way, but the pain of her not being able to hang in, promise me a few years, I couldn't metabolize it in my body. And an autoimmune disease is like when the body attacks itself. And I don't know how literal that is, but symbolically, that's what it felt like was happening, if that makes sense. I didn't know what to do with the pain. It's too big. It was too big.
Well, now you're really like speaking to me because I just got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease myself. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, these are just
I think a lot of adoptees do. What do you think, Haley?
Well, I think so too. I mean, this is just anecdotal though, right? Like I haven't seen like a study where it's like, oh, adoptees have everyone has autoimmune disorders. But
someone studied that.
Yeah, get on that. Send us a link so we can join your research study.
Yeah. I think the stress, though, there are links with studies with links between stress and other illnesses and how our immune system functions. And I think that the stress of a secondary rejection is off the charts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh man, but just the description of soul pain, like, wow, that's so apt. I don't know. It's just like, it is. It's really, really difficult. And it's almost like there's varying degrees of this too. Like I had secondary rejection, but I didn't know it yet. Like the last email I got was kind of like, you've said some really negative things about my family and like let's reschedule this kind of another time, whatever. And then I never heard another word. So I didn't know that was like going to be the last word. So for me, it was way more gradually realizing like, oh, that was the last word.
Ouch.
Yeah. But, and it's different for everyone, you have this moment with your first mom in the car,
Hmm.
some people, it's like they don't even hear back from sending a hopeful contact letter, or they get a letter back, but it's from a lawyer,
Ugh.
cease and desist nonsense. Or, oh gosh, this one lady just messaged me a few days ago and said that she phoned and just heard the harshest words ever, like, from her first mom, basically, like, you ruined my life by contacting me, etc.
It's so cold.
Yeah, exactly. So, that pain is real. And then what happens next for us?
I think we go into we get totally physically and emotionally destabilized, and we go into like a chaos inside, and it's really hard. We've talked about this before, but like there's no cultural mirror, so we're walking around feeling like socked in the gut and brokenhearted and just, I don't know, out of our minds with grief. And then, but we're supposed to go to work or function or take care of our kids or do whatever we're supposed to do, and we don't have a tangible thing to say. Like we can't say, oh, someone in my family died, or we don't have any excuse that makes sense to the culture. So it can be very lonely to feel that kind of pain and not have people understand it. I was talking to I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday who's a therapist, and she's an adoptee, and we were making some jokes. I make jokes when I get in too much pain, so this is where this came from. But I was making a joke, and I said something like, to the culture, it's like saying, yeah, I went to a Madonna concert and I didn't even get to meet her, and they're like, yeah, so what? Like, big deal. It's like we already have parents to the world. Like, so okay, you didn't meet a stranger. Like, so what? It's not that big of a deal.
Mm,
You don't even know
yeah.
this person, like, has nothing to do with you. But and that's all true. It doesn't have anything to do with us when someone rejects us before they've even met us. But still, it's to us, it's the soul pain. And
Hmm.
it's very, I think it's, in my case, it's been very physical. Like I felt really like sick to my stomach with grief and pain
Hmm.
for days and weeks.
And I love that you mentioned it, like that just that people don't recognize it, and you can't call in with, I got a letter from a lawyer. Like that's not an excuse to not go to work. Um,
Right, right.
yeah, yeah.
There's no excuse really. I mean, it doesn't fit anywhere on anyone's map who doesn't
Hmm.
understand it like we do.
Hmm.
So that's really hard. I had a rejection just in 2017 also, and I remember the exact date of it, and I was at this little beach house, and it was when I realized that it was really over with this other side of my family. And I did this really weird thing. It's not that weird, but I did this weird thing where I needed I needed to do something to not just collapse, and I think my fear was I could just collapse and give up. Like there's something that took all the wind out of my sails. Don't you think that's a common way we feel when there's rejection? Like it takes the wind out of our sails. Like it
Yeah,
just like what's the point? It can be a very dark, very dark place.
yeah, totally.
Even dangerous. Like, if people have this and they're feeling suicidal, they should really get support and talk to the community and just get the help they need, because it is tough. But the thing I did was I'm not really, I don't have a strong upper body, and I'm in my 50s, so I made this deal to myself that every day I was going to do 10 push-ups until I could do 30 push-ups, and because it was on the 30th of the month that this whole rejection happened, and I thought I'm going to go towards strength, physical strength, instead of collapsing into just nothingness. And so I started doing push-ups every day, but then I hurt myself, so I had to stop.
Oh no.
But it was like just this mental, like I can't let this I can't let this take me out. Like I needed to do something symbolic, so I was doing push-ups.
Well, perfect. Okay. So let's put that on our list. Coping
Okay,
tools.
push-ups.
Push-ups. And maybe if you yeah, you pick the number of push-ups based on the day that you get the letter or the like horrible phone call.
Mhm.
Okay, what else can we do?
Well, I think at first it's almost like being in a horrible car accident, and that's the feeling. And like I think that we just need very basic self-care, like drink water, walk around. Like don't just sit in one place or don't just stay in bed all day. Like walk around, get some fresh air, breathe, call a friend, call someone that you can talk with about this. Or if there isn't anybody, get on your site and post something about it. But just to do these basic things to kind of keep your body moving so that you're not just collapsed, if possible. That would
Well,
be the
you're saying these like very, basic things and I'm like we like literally have to give ourselves permission to acknowledge that this is a big deal. I know you just said that, but I'm like, I don't know, that's
yeah,
hitting me for some reason. Like,
yeah.
it's a big deal. So, of course, you have to remind yourself to like not lay on the couch and just give up.
Right. I mean, I think it's okay actually to lie on the couch or go to bed for a few days, but I think that, uh, I don't know. For me, I feel things really physically. So the car accident thing or feeling like I got a brain injury by the rejection, it feels super physical to me. So the simple act for me of just drinking 4 ounces of water and breathing a couple of times is like a big deal, in the
Mhm.
face of that kind of pain.
Mhm.
It's like a death. It's like a death just happened. And so that's what people have trouble with after a death happens. It's just basic breathing, drinking water, trying to get some sleep, trying to connect.
And now I'm thinking of someone like, me or some like, who I didn't actually know it was the end, and or someone that is just, like, waiting for the answer that's it's just not gonna come. You're just not gonna get an answer back,
Hmm.
and you don't have, like, the moment of
Hmm.
awareness, or
Yeah.
maybe the moment does come at some point, I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of it's got like another terrible flavor to it, where there's this sort of realization creeping in and it's sort of horrifying, but you can't quite believe it. But then more and more, it seems like it's the only possibility that it's a rejection.
Mhm.
So are you asking like what's due about that?
Well, I guess, I don't know what I'm asking. It's I guess it's almost like a little bit of a different spin on it because I don't remember having a moment where I'm like, "Oh, she's really never gonna talk to me again, ever."
Yeah.
And in some ways I just posted about this on my Instagram stories on the Adoptees on, account, just a few days ago. Like, it would be easier if she just said that to me, like, "I'm never gonna talk to you again," because then I would have that moment and I could start grieving. But there's still, like, this, like, little hope, like, "Oh, maybe my letter got lost in the mail and
Yeah.
maybe they're still gonna respond to me even though it's been a couple years."
Right. There's kind of a crazy making, isn't there, that goes with all of that?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that what's so hard about this is that many of us have our identities wrapped up in the reunion. And so when there's rejection, it literally changes, sometimes on a dime, and other times gradually, our sense of ourselves. And that's terrifying. Like we think we're in, or we think we're worthy to be in, or we think we're possibly going to be wanted and belong. And then we find out we're not in some way, either gradually or suddenly. And it changes our whole sense of the world. I mean, it's horrible. It's shocking. It's like going into shock, and
Mhm.
the world seems different. I mean, once it becomes really clear, and so it's something that we can't really get rid of the pain. It's more like we have to, over time, learn to live with it,
Mhm.
because it's like with the grief of losing a person to death. It's really truly a loss that we register deeply. We just but we can't learn to live with it suddenly. We have to go through these horrible days and weeks of feeling terrible, I think.
Yeah. So then we're go back to those things that you said, just like drinking water, like those kind of things. And then what happens sort of after that? What are some
Mhm,
things to take care of ourselves?
mhm. Well, after the shock kind of starts to wear down wear away, we we find that we're going in and out of pain. It's not like the pain is there so constantly. It might be there when we're by ourselves or when we're not doing something, but then if we go out with friends or we're watching a good movie, we might forget the pain for a few minutes and then, we're going in and out of the pain. And so it's good when that starts to happen because we have some relief in more moments and then more and more and more. And then it's more like we're not living so much in the pain, but the pain still comes because of triggers or holidays or reminders. And so it shifts over time. But I think the next phase would be going in and out of pain. And it's good to be aware of that. Like, oh, I just spent 15 minutes or maybe 2 hours not really even thinking about it. And that starts to happen later. And that's because, we are resilient creatures. So we have that going for us, even if our families don't want us. We're still
Mm,
human and we're really resilient and we have
mhm.
that in us. So our systems are trying to work it out through dreams and our thoughts, and we're trying to work it out.
Isn't there just a piece of this that it's just so nice to know that even this is so hard, like we're just having normal responses to something that's so hard. And it's almost like the piece that's the most challenging is, something we've talked about before, like that society doesn't recognize that this pain is valid.
Hmm.
And I don't know, just talking about this with you, it's almost just like we're just normalizing that this is hard and you're just going to feel hard things and it's okay.
Right, and it's okay because yeah, there's another side that can get lived into with time and with support and with help. So that's where it later can become. I'm living proof that it can become okay later, really. And I know people for whom it's become good later as well with time. Like the friend I was talking with, she was rejected. She never met her first mom. She was rejected before she ever met her in kind of a horrible way. So yeah, but you're right. I mean, there's nothing abnormal about us feeling soul pain and sickness from secondary rejection. I mean, what else are we going to feel? But we just don't have words and language for this. We should make up
Mm-mm.
our own special language to describe it, you know?
Oh, to will I have to censor, like, get the beep sound?
I remember, I remember singing, this is not about my first mom, but just family people that I'm not in touch with anymore, but I remember singing Ding Dong the Witch is Dead and pretending I was happy.
Oh, that's perfect.
Oh, well, and also, like, I mean, and I'm saying this from years out, right? But there is some little part of me, and this is kinda like what people say after a breakup, but, like, there's this little part of me that is really glad I don't have to put on a false self and try really hard to be liked and kept by people that I don't even really feel that connected with.
Mm,
So there's a little bit of relief there also, but that certainly is not what I felt when this thing happened. I felt sick for I felt sick in my heart, in my stomach for weeks, and then less, 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 less. And it can still happen. It can still come with triggers. But
mhm.
I'm just saying, there is. I mean, for me, I'm first family free. There's a new language. First family free. FFF. I'm triple F. First family free. And so I can say that I don't have to worry, what am I gonna get them for Christmas? What am I gonna when are their birthdays? Am I doing it right? Oh, should I not have said that thing? I better start taking kickboxing so I can get my rage out and they won't even know I have it. I don't have to worry about those things anymore. I'm living light.
Mm,
So I'm being a little bit facetious, but I mean it. There is a bit of relief later, 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 later for me.
yeah, yeah.
It isn't what I would have wanted, but it is there.
Okay, so how about I want you to assess this if this is healthy or not. hypothetically speaking, I mean, I'm not, this could be anyone talking about this. So you kind of internet stalk to see what's happening with them, just hypothetically.
Mhm,
Would you say that is, are you just trying to dig a pain, or that's okay because you're curious? You want to make sure that your first family free is like, that's a good thing. I don't know.
mhm.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think that if it's a clear-cut rejection case, I mean, it's reasonable for a hypothetical person to do that, and it's normal. It's like stalking an ex or something. That's normal.
Oh,
But if I were if I were somebody's guardian angel, I would say don't do it
mm,
because here's my thing. I do not want to have anything other than a wholehearted connection with people in my life. I need my connections to be utterly mutually wholehearted. I can't do half-hearted anymore. So I just would. It makes my heart hurt for the thought of this hypothetical person, who's been rejected to go that direction. It's like the food isn't there. The food is in other relationships that are not necessarily biological, but that are wholehearted. That's where we're going to get
mm.
fed. And so, yeah, if I were somebody's guardian angel, I would just say, don't. Let's not do it. Let's go for a walk. Let's watch a TV show. Let's call so and so. Let's write a story. Let's read a book. Let's go get a puppy. Let's do something else. But let's not. And that's why I blocked my family because I don't, I didn't trust myself and I didn't want to hurt. I didn't want to get hurt from the part of me that would be driving that whole thing of stalking.
Mm.
So I don't want to know. I don't want to know the parties I'm missing. I don't want to know. I don't want to see how happy they all look without me. I just don't want to see it. It's just too painful.
Okay, that makes sense.
So I'm all about, yeah, yeah, first family free and wholehearted relationships only.
Mm,
That's my deal.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. No, that does make sense. Okay. Anything else that you see people who are in a similar situations to us do that you'd be like, "No, don't do that."
It's again, I'm gonna compare this to an ex. It's like there's a period of time where it's normal to be circling around that pain and that breakup, but at some point we've got to move on, and that means building our life on something other than the rejection and other than the first family and other than the lineage that we came from. We have to find something else to build our lives around. And so we have the power to choose where we focus. Our minds go all over the place where our minds are thinking thoughts constantly, and most of them are negative and scary thoughts from our default network in our brains. But we do have the power to put our attention in other places. So,
Oh, can you walk us through that? This happens often, right? We think about, what if she changed her mind and does wanna get back in touch with me? Or like, should I write her a letter? Or just focusing on what I don't have, what I'm missing. How do like, what do I actually do in the moment to not do that anymore?
okay, I'll tell you exactly what to do in the moment. But first, I just want to say that if there's an ambivalence going on inside of an adoptee or in the first family, I mean, maybe it's something that could get worked out over time. Maybe in some cases there is a possibility for things to get better and go from lukewarm to really warm. But for those of us that know it's just over, it's not going to happen unless something a miracle happens. Then then it's natural to find yourself spinning around about these things of our minds just drift there because our minds do that. Our minds drift to painful and frightening areas. That's what our minds do. So here's what to do. Here's a little recipe. Okay.
Mhm.
So let's say you're sitting on the couch and you start, you're not here anymore. You're back there trying to fix this problem. So you're imagining some scenario like you just said. So I would literally stand up and get your body moving because it's really hard to change our state of mind when we're sitting down. So I would get up off the couch and move around, walk around the house, And the second thing is I would get into my eyes and I would look at something that's right there in front of me. And that's forcing my focus to go from first family to something that's actually right in front of me. And then I would try to bring my curiosity in, like ask questions like, oh, I wonder who made that painting. I wonder what they were thinking or feeling when they made that painting. And I'm trying to just get myself invested in this current moment and not back there with the first family. And then I would try to find something else for me to do. Like, hey, let's go da 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 da. I would, I talk to myself like that. Like I say, let's da da da, because I'm talking from the adult to the little kid that doesn't always do healthy things. So I would get up, get in your eyes, get curious, ask some questions about something right in front of you, and then do something, call somebody, but throw your attention into something else, your segue into something else. And that changes your brain. Because to sit there and just be stewing or reliving conversations or planning revenge fantasies or whatever we do, but I do, no. It's extremely painful, and it gets me into a really bad mood. Like if I just go there, like if I'm playing a phone game and I'm sitting there reviewing a conversation or in just that kind of state of mind, I'm going to get into a big funk. And then it's going to be harder. The more I do it and the longer I stay there, it's going to be harder and harder to get myself out of it. So that's why when I'm thinking clearly, I, get up, walk around, get in my eyes, get curious, ask questions about what's right in front of me, and then go do something. And that it's like changing the channel on the TV. Like, why would we watch a horrible show about our first families who've rejected us? Let's change the channel and watch Friends or something,
Mm-hmm. That's perfect. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else, any other strategies or ideas for things for us to do when we're in the middle of just the coping section after rejection?
I would just try not, like you were saying earlier, I would try not to minimize it. I think that the pain of rejection, of secondary rejection, is so awful that it's just so overwhelming and like a sickness. And I would try to avoid telling yourself that you should feel differently than you do. Like if you're just in the worst pain ever, like you said, that's fair. Like that's reasonable. Like that's normal behavior to an abnormal situation. So, and then for people who are religious or even like spiritual, like praying for help, like to some kind of entity bigger than us. I'm not personally religious, but they've even done studies on prayer. It doesn't have to be prayer to a god if you're not religious, but any kind of asking something higher than us for some support or help. Like I've prayed to trees before. Like I've been out in nature and in a ton of pain and just been like, hey, will you please send me some love for a minute? Like, just anything bigger than myself to try to soothe my soul because I'm in so much pain. I think asking for help to the universe or to God is something that we do when we're in that amount of pain.
Well, thank you for your thoughts on that. And I think it's so good for us to be having these conversations because there's so many adopted people in this position and they feel like wrong for feeling so hurt. But it's so like, of course you feel hurt. And I'm really sorry that there's so many of us in that position.
Yeah. 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 It's the culture that makes us feel crazy. It's not
Yeah.
us.
It's not you. It's not
Yeah.
you.
It's not you.
Pam, can you tell us where we can connect with you and what kind of other stuff you got going on?
Yeah. So the best way is through my email, which is pcordano@comcast.net. And yeah, I'm just really enjoying my therapy practice. I'm doing some Skyping coaching sessions with people out of state. Anne and I are still doing retreats, and we're doing part 2 this year. I've been doing some adoptee speaking stuff, and I'm bringing women on the Camino de Santiago in Spain for a healing journey. And that's a mixture of adoptees and people who have recovered from cancer and are rebuilding their sense of identity in their lives. So we're going this September, and it's almost full, but if you have an interest, we have some amazing adoptees who are coming this September, and I'd be happy to share the information about it. It's a 10-day trip.
Amazing opportunity. so exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much for your wisdom and sharing that with us today. If you're listening when I have just released this, there's only 1 month left until the American Adoption Congress Conference in Washington, D.C., and I would love to have you join me there. I'd love to meet you in person. I am so excited about the keynote speech I'm making. You know, adoptee voices are so important to me, and so I'm absolutely passionate about talking about that more and more. I mean, I do it every week, so obviously. And I'm also presenting with Katrina Palmer, and we are going to be talking about secondary rejection. So, very similar topic to what Pam and I talked about today, except Katrina and I are going to be talking about our personal experiences and how we have moved through this secondary rejection process. And I think it's going to be very impactful. So, I would love to have you join us for that. You can find more info in the show notes on how to register, or just Google American Adoption Congress, and you can find the conference information right on their website. As always, a giant thank you to my monthly supporters. I couldn't do the show without you. If you would like to join with them, you can go to adopteeson.com/partner for all the details. Thanks so much for listening. Let's talk again next Friday.